Yeah. Well, on Twitter, I posted out, huh? Because I mean, I don't know what else to say to that. It's other than I will say this. I was talking with Chris, my manager the other day, and he was reciting to me and knows it far better than I did because he had booked Sid for last WrestleCon and a lot of other things. He's kept a lot closer touch on that than I have. I'm beginning to wonder if Sid doesn't have some kind of psychosis or how do I, God, that sounds horrible to put it that way. Is Sid having some kind of purpose in his head that he doesn't want to appear in front of crowds? Because like Chris said, he goes to all the trouble of getting himself booked. He gets to travel and everything's sent, and then doesn't appear. And it's not like, you can blame the travel ban. I'm still trying to figure out what his reasoning is on that, because unless you're traveling from one of 7 countries and you're an undocumented person traveling from those countries, that's how it would affect you, not traveling from Cleveland to Pittsburgh. I'm missing that point, but I mean, how many shots has he missed? Chris, and again, he keeps much better tabs on that than I do, but he told me that he knows of only one appearance that Sid has made in the last couple of years that he was aware of. Now, whether that's factual, I don't know. That's what I'm telling you, Chris was telling me, but I've heard this story so often. He's got a plane ticket in hand, the show's confirmed, he's got a hell of a payday waiting, and he doesn't make the appearance. Is there something else going on? Is there some fear of appearing in the public or something else? I don't know. I can't figure it out, but to me, there's got to be something more going on here. A guy doesn't just pass up a hefty payday ad nauseum. How many times have we heard that in the last couple of years and made up excuse after excuse after excuse, and now the travel ban. And the next is going to be Kim Jong-un, or Kim Jong-il's, Un rather. I keep getting mixed up. Kim Jong-un intercepted his flight or something. I hope I'm wrong on that. I've always thought Sid was a good guy, and I can't figure why else he'd be missing all of these shots if there wasn't something more at work. And if that's the case, I'd hope he'd reach out to me at least, to talk and see if we'd help him find some kind of resolution for it. Crazier things have happened in this business. Anything can happen. I've seen a lot crazier things happen, but it seems to me that just basing it off of what I'm seeing and the information in the public there, when you get to the point where you're trying to say that Donald Trump's travel ban prohibited you from getting to a shot, then it seems to me you must have reached the bottom of the barrel on the excuses. And why would you go to the problem of getting yourself booked and obtaining the ticket and everything else to not show up? It doesn't make sense to me unless there's something else going on.
The thing is with Sid is that everyone says that missed potential, or that he had so much potential. Obviously, he was a former WCW champion, former WF champion, possibly one of the most charismatic guys ever in wrestling. What a great look. His wrestling, I think people say he was terrible, but I think he was underrated just for the fact that you're that big, you really shouldn't be doing too much wrestling. You should be more psychology, more power moves. So perhaps underrated. People just throw out the overrated thing a lot. But what does the franchise think?
When I was with Johnny Ace as the Dynamic Dudes, I saw firsthand how over Sid was. We wrestled in Troy, New York. Now, granted, we can go into the minutia and talk about how the dudes weren't over or whatever, and that Troy was a heel town. But the crowd really did have a connection to Sid. He was a big, imposing guy. He had the look. But see, I believe that oftentimes guys that have that look same demands aren't placed on them. You know, as a young kid in the business, I always knew I was one day away from being fired. You know, that I got to go out and bust my ass and show that I'm learning and show that I'm improving to keep my job. And I worked hard at that. So did Brian Pillman. So did Steve Austin. So did Tom Zank. So did a lot of us. But with a guy like Sid who had that, you know, just an incredible, impressive look, that sometimes I think that they were done a disservice to. At the time, a lot of us looked at it and we were sort of jealous of it. Like, why they don't have to work as hard, that sort of thing. But in the over and under, were they forced to learn the craft the same way the rest of us were? If we weren't 6'11", 300 pounds of jacked, chiseled muscle, whatever. And so, it's sort of a give and take. I think Sid, I can tell you Sid was, I know that Sid was a hell of an athlete. And, could do things that for a guy his size, he shouldn't have been able to do. But I don't think in the overall analysis that he was held to the same type of regimen that I was. I don't think that Sid ever believed he was one day away from being fired, because guys that looked like him and could do what he could do, they're not a dime a dozen. Guys that are 6'1" and have a certain look may be a little bit more common. So I think in the long run, that may have been more a disservice to guys like him and Lex Luger that didn't hold them to the same account. Because, let's face it, in Larry's case, he played professional football. You don't make it to the NFL if you're a shitty athlete. I don't care who you are. And, for Sid, you don't make it to that level if you're just smoke and mirrors. There's some legitimacy behind all of it. And yet, why does one learn the craft and excel and others sort of, stay at a certain point and never really show the progression? I don't know. It's just a question I'm throwing out for myself as much as an answer. But I think Sid certainly had the physical capacity to be as big as anything in wrestling had ever been. But at that time, keep in mind that there were very few people pointing the way on the map. The preceding generation was very, very reluctant to say, hey, big man, or hey, Shane, or hey, Steve Austin, whoever. Instead of this, do that. Or you should try to improve this or change that. There was very, very little of that. And, for guys like, in my case, it lit a fire under my ass that I was going to prove it to myself or fail trying, but I wasn't going to just walk away without a fight. For a guy that's 6'11", almost 7 foot tall, and chiseled with muscle and making a good payday, and that payday's probably not going away, why work as hard? So I think in many ways it did guys like him a disservice.